The signal came on a Tuesday. Commander Elena Santos stood in the control room of the Mariana Deep Sea Research Station, staring at the readings that defied everything she thought she knew about physics. The quantum detection array, designed to monitor deep-sea thermal vents, had picked up something impossible. A perfectly ordered sequence of gravitational fluctuations originating from somewhere beyond Neptune's orbit. "Run it again," she ordered, her voice steady despite the trembling in her hands. Dr. James Chen, the station's lead physicist, tapped at his holographic display, his fingers leaving ripples in the projected light. "Same result, Commander. This isn't background noise or equipment malfunction. Something out there is manipulating gravity itself, and they're doing it with a precision that makes our best technology look like stone tools." Elena closed her eyes, feeling the familiar pressure of 3 kilometers of ocean above them. The station's bioengineered walls, grown from modified coral polyps and reinforced with carbon nanotubes, pulsed slightly with the ocean currents. It was a technology that had revolutionized deep-sea construction. But right now, it felt primitive compared to whatever was approaching Earth. The next 72 hours transformed human civilization. The visitors called themselves the Virians, a spacefaring species that had mastered gravity manipulation for interstellar travel. Their massive ships, gleaming constructs of what looked like liquid metal, took up position in high Earth orbit. Their message was simple. They had detected humanity's first tentative experiments with quantum technology and had come to welcome Earth into the galactic community. But they hadn't expected what they found. "You're saying these structures exist throughout your oceans?" the Virian ambassador, Tilara, asked 2 weeks later. Her crystalline environment suit caught the light as she studied the station's living walls. Her species had evolved on a desert world, and the concept of vast bodies of water was as alien to them as their gravity drives were to humans. "This is just the beginning," Elena replied, leading the alien delegation through the station's main research hub. "When we first started exploring the deep ocean, we realized traditional engineering approaches wouldn't work. The pressure at these depths would crush conventional structures. So we looked to the life forms that already thrived here." She gestured to a massive window looking out into the abyssal plain. Bioluminescent creatures drifted past, their lights pulsing in complex patterns. Every adaptation we saw, every surprising solution evolution had developed, became inspiration for new technology. The station's walls aren't just grown, they're alive. They repair themselves, adapt to changing conditions, and can even redirect currents to reduce structural stress. Tilara's translator clicked rapidly as she processed this information. "But our scans indicated your species has barely mastered basic spaceflight. How could you have developed such advanced biotechnology?" Elena smiled. It was time to reveal what humanity had been working on in secret, hidden beneath the waves. "Ambassador, would you like to see why we haven't focused on conventional space travel? There's something I need to show you in Hangar Bay 7. The walk to the hangar took them through corridors that seemed to breathe, walls rippling with patterns of bioluminescence that served both as lighting and a complex environmental monitoring system. Each step took them closer to humanity's greatest achievement and its biggest secret. The hangar doors parted like living tissue, revealing a cavernous space carved from the oceanic crust. But it wasn't the size of the chamber that made the Virian delegation stop in their tracks. It was what floated in the center, suspended in a massive pool of specialized fluid. "We call it the Nautilus," Elena said, watching their reaction. "The first of its kind. A ship grown, not built. Its neural networks are based on cephalopod brains, its propulsion inspired by deep-sea creatures. Every system is a fusion of organic and mechanical engineering that even we're still trying to fully understand." The vessel was unlike anything the Virians had ever seen. Nearly half a kilometer long, its hull rippled with patterns of light that mimicked deep-sea creatures. Tendrils of modified muscle tissue and crystalline structures wrapped around a core that pulsed with a soft blue light. It looked less like a ship and more like a living entity, perfectly adapted to the most extreme environments imaginable. "This isn't just a ship," Elena continued. It's the next step in human evolution. We've created something that can survive not just the crushing depths of our oceans, but the harsh conditions of space. And it does it not by fighting against the environment, but by adapting to it, becoming part of it. Lara moved closer to the observation window, her environmental suit's sensors working overtime to analyze what they were seeing. How long have you been developing this technology? Officially, this project doesn't exist. Unofficially, we've been working on it since we first discovered the true potential of deep-sea biological adaptation. While the rest of the world looked to the stars, we looked to the depths. And what we found there changed everything we thought we knew about what was possible. The Nautilus's hull shifted, patterns of light racing across its surface like thoughts moving through a neural network. It was beautiful, terrifying, and utterly unlike anything humanity had created before. And it was just the beginning. Ambassador, Elena said, her voice quiet but firm, you came here thinking you were going to guide a primitive species into the galactic community. But I think you'll find that humanity has something to teach the galaxy about thinking beyond conventional limitations. We had to adapt to survive in the most extreme environment on our planet. Now we're ready to take those lessons to the stars. News of the Nautilus spread through the Varian fleet like a shockwave. Within days, their finest scientists and engineers had assembled in the Mariana facility, their crystalline environment suits creating a rainbow of refractions across the station's living walls. But understanding the true nature of humanity's achievement proved more challenging than anyone had anticipated. Dr. Maya Rodriguez, head of the Nautilus's bioengineering team, stood before a holographic display showing the ship's neural architecture. The breakthrough came when we stopped trying to force traditional computing paradigms onto biological systems, she explained to the assembled alien delegation. We didn't create a computer that mimics a brain. We grew actual neural networks and taught them to interface with our technology. The display shifted, showing streams of bioluminescent signals coursing through the Nautilus's neural pathways. Each pulse represented thousands of simultaneous calculations, performed not through silicon and electricity, but through modified organic tissue that could process information in three-dimensional space. Impossible, muttered Chief Scientist Carell, his environment suit's sensors practically overloading as they attempted to analyze the data. The energy requirements alone should make this unfeasible. Maya smiled. That's because you're thinking in terms of traditional power generation. Watch this. She pressed her palm against a nearby interface panel. The wall beneath her hand began to glow, patterns of light spreading outward like ripples in a pond. The entire ship is photosynthetic. It generates power from any available light source, just like deep-sea creatures do. But it also harvests energy from pressure differentials, temperature gradients, and even the quantum fluctuations in spacetime itself. The Virian scientists exchanged glances through their crystalline helmets. Their own technology, advanced as it was, suddenly seemed rigid and limited in comparison. They had mastered the manipulation of fundamental forces through brute force and precise engineering. Humanity had instead chosen to work with nature, creating something that was neither purely mechanical nor purely organic, but something entirely new. In the hangar below, engineers were preparing the Nautilus for its first space trial. The ship's surface rippled continuously, its chromatophores shifting through patterns that served both as camouflage and communication. Modified muscle fibers, stronger than any artificial material yet created, contracted and relaxed in complex sequences, testing the vessel's mobility systems. The real advantage becomes apparent in deep space, Maya continued, bringing up new data streams. Traditional ships need massive shields to protect against radiation and micrometeorites. The Nautilus's hull is self-repairing. Any damage triggers an immediate biological response, much like a wound healing in a living organism, but faster and with improvements learned from each incident. Grell moved closer to the display, his natural skepticism warring with the evidence before him. And the crew? How do they interface with such a system? In response, Maya gestured to a nearby chamber. Inside, suspended in a clear fluid, floated what appeared to be a pilot's seat, but it was unlike any control system the Vyrians had ever seen. Tendrils of neural tissue extended from its surface, designed to interface directly with the human nervous system. "We don't just pilot the ship," Maya explained. "We join with it." The neural interface allows for direct communication between human consciousness and the ship's distributed intelligence. It's a true symbiosis. The ship becomes an extension of the crew, and the crew becomes part of the ship's neural network. The implications were staggering. While other species had focused on conquering space through technology, humanity had found a way to adapt to it, to become one with their vessels in a way that transcended traditional pilot-ship relationships. "There's more," Maya said, her voice growing serious. "We've discovered that the neural network can maintain its connection across vast distances, possibly even exceeding light speed. We think it's related to quantum entanglement, but honestly, we're still trying to understand the full implications." At that moment, alarms began blaring throughout the station. Commander Santos's voice came over the intercom, tight with urgency. "Dr. Rodriguez, we need you in control immediately. Long-range sensors have picked up something approaching the solar system. Something big." The Vyrian scientists stiffened, their environmental suits' colors shifting to warning patterns. They knew what was coming. Their worst fears had been realized. Their presence at Earth had been noticed by others. Maya was already moving toward the control room, her mind racing. The Nautilus was ready for space trials, but they had planned for months of testing before any actual deployment. Now it seemed time had run out. As she ran, she could feel the station's living walls pulsing with increased activity, as if the structure itself could sense the approaching danger. The bioengineered corridors seemed to shift, creating the most efficient path to her destination. Everything humanity had learned from Earth's oceans, every adaptation and innovation, was about to be tested in ways no one had anticipated. The Nautilus wasn't just humanity's greatest achievement. It was about to become their greatest hope for survival. And perhaps, Maya realized as she burst into the control room, it would prove to be the salvation of their new alien allies as well. The real test of their living ships was about to begin, not in the controlled environment they had planned for, but in the crucible of actual conflict. As she looked at the sensor readings, Maya understood with crystal clarity. Humanity's journey to the stars would not be a peaceful exploration mission as they had hoped. Instead, they would be thrust into a galaxy far more dangerous and complex than anyone had imagined. But perhaps that was fitting. After all, humanity had evolved in one of the most challenging environments in known space. They had learned to adapt, to survive, to thrive. Now it was time to show the galaxy what those lessons really meant. They came out of the darkness beyond Pluto's orbit, a fleet of ships that moved like a swarm of predatory fish. Their hulls absorbed light rather than reflected it, making them appear as moving voids against the star-filled background. The Vyrian sensors classified them immediately. Nexuri vessels, belonging to a species known for claiming the resources of lesser civilizations. Commander Elena Santos stood in the Nautilus's neural interface chamber, the bioorganic tendrils connecting with her nervous system as the ship's consciousness merged with her own. Around her, the vessel's internal structures pulsed with patterns of bioluminescence that matched her heartbeat. "They're not responding to hails," reported Dr. Chen from his station, where he monitored the ship's quantum communication systems. "Vyrian Command says this is typical Nexuri behavior. They don't negotiate. They take." Elena felt the Nautilus's response through their shared neural connection, a complex mixture of anticipation and protective instinct that mirrored her own emotions. The ship, despite being humanity's most advanced creation, was in many ways like a living creature with its own drives and intuitions. "All hands, prepare for combat integration," Elena announced, her voice carrying through the ship's neural network rather than conventional speakers. Throughout the vessel, crew members connected to their stations, becoming part of the Nautilus's distributed consciousness. The Nexuri fleet approached with mechanical precision, their formation designed to trap Earth's defenders between their forces and the planet's gravity well. It was a tactic that had probably worked countless times against conventional vessels. But the Nautilus was anything but conventional. They're launching their first wave, Maya reported from engineering, her consciousness linked directly to the ship's biological systems. Energy readings suggest some kind of plasma-based weapons. Elena smiled grimly. Show them what we learned from the electric eagle. The Nautilus's outer layer of chromatophores suddenly blazed with light, creating a dazzling display that would have looked right at home in the deepest ocean trenches. But this was more than mere bioluminescence. The ship was generating a massive bioelectric field, similar to how certain deep-sea creatures tunned their prey. The first wave of Nexari plasma bolts hit the field and dissipated harmlessly, their energy absorbed and redistributed through the Nautilus's biological systems. The alien vessels paused, clearly surprised by this unexpected defense. Now, Elena commanded, show them how we hunt. The Nautilus moved with impossible grace for something its size, its motion more reminiscent of a sea creature than a spacecraft. Membrane-like structures extended from its hull, using the solar wind like ocean currents, while modified muscle tissues contracted and expanded to provide precise maneuvering control. The first Nexari ship never saw the attack coming. The Nautilus's hull shifted color to match the darkness of space, its bioluminescent patterns going dark. Using principles learned from studying cephalopod propulsion, it launched itself forward with devastating speed. Instead of conventional weapons, the ship extended crystalline structures grown from modified deep-sea coral, harder than diamond, and charged with bioelectric energy. The impact sheared through the Nexari vessel's hull like it was paper. But the real surprise came moments later, when the crystalline structures began to grow, spreading through the enemy ship like a coral reef claiming new territory. Within minutes, the Nexari vessel was completely immobilized. By the void, Corell breathed from the Virian flagship, watching the battle unfold. They're not just fighting the Nexari, they're adapting to them in real time. He was right. With each exchange, the Nautilus's biological systems were learning, evolving new responses to the Nexari weapons and tactics. The ship's neural network processed combat data faster than any conventional computer, using organic computing principles that operated in three-dimensional space rather than binary. The Nexari, faced with an enemy unlike anything in their experience, began to retreat. Their rigid mechanical approach to warfare had no answer for a vessel that could think, adapt, and evolve during battle itself. As the alien fleet withdrew, Elena felt the Nautilus's satisfaction through their neural link. The ship had protected its crew, its planet, and proven itself in combat. But more than that, it had demonstrated something profound. Humanity's path to the stars, though unconventional, was no less valid than the mechanical mastery of other species. Send a message to the Nexari command, Elena ordered, her consciousness still merged with the ship's systems. Tell them Earth is under the protection of the Nautilus-class vessels, and we are very, very good at adapting to threats. The message was unnecessary. The Nexari had already learned that lesson the hard way. As they disappeared into the outer darkness, Elena knew this was just the beginning. The galaxy would have to adjust to humanity's presence, to their unique approach to technology and space travel. The Virian ships moved closer, their crews still processing what they had witnessed. Humanity hadn't just survived their first space battle, they had revolutionized combat itself, using principles evolved in Earth's oceans to dominate the void between stars. Commander, Maya's voice came through the neural network. The ship's biological systems are already incorporating what they learned from the battle. The next time we face the Nexari, we'll be even better prepared. Elena nodded, feeling the constant evolution of the ship's systems through their connection. That's the difference between our approach and theirs, isn't it? They build their ships to specification, perfect but unchanging. We grew ours to adapt, to learn, to become more than their original design. As the Nautilus turned back toward Earth, its hull rippling with patterns of victory and pride, Elena knew they had done more than win a battle. They had proven that humanity's unique perspective, shaped by evolving on a world of extremes, had something vital to offer the galaxy. The news spread through the galaxy like a shockwave. Humanity's living ships had defeated a Nexeri battle fleet. Species that had lived in fear of Nexeri expansion for centuries suddenly turned their attention to Earth, eager to learn more about these newcomers who had accomplished the impossible. 3 months after the battle, the Mariana Deep Sea Research Station had become an interstellar diplomatic hub. Representatives from 24 spacefaring civilizations crowded its corridors, their various environmental suits creating a riot of colors and shapes against the station's living walls. Commander Elena Santos stood in her office, now transformed into an impromptu conference room, facing a delegation of alien leaders. Through the transparent walls, she could see the Nautilus floating in its hangar, its hull patterns shifting in response to the various energy signatures of the visiting alien vessels. "The Nexeri aren't retreating," Tilara, the Virian ambassador, announced grimly. "Our long-range sensors indicate they're gathering a fleet larger than anything we've ever encountered. They see humanity's bioships as a threat to their dominance." "Let them come," Elena replied, but Corel, the Virian chief scientist, shook his head. "You don't understand. The fleet they're assembling. It's not just Nexeri vessels. They've convinced several other mechanical-focused species to join them. They're calling it a crusade against biological contamination of space." Dr. Maya Rodriguez, who had been quietly monitoring the Nautilus's neural feeds, stepped forward. "Then perhaps it's time we showed them what biological adaptation really means. The Nautilus has been evolving." The alien representatives turned to her, their various sensory organs focusing with intense interest. Maya gestured, and a holographic display materialized in the center of the room, showing the ship's neural network structure. "When we first designed the Nautilus, we based its systems on Earth's deep-sea life. But the ship has gone beyond our original designs. It's developing new capabilities, adapting in ways we never anticipated. And it's not just learning, it's teaching." The display shifted, showing streams of data flowing between the Nautilus and the station's living walls. The ship's neural network has begun sharing its adaptations with other bioengineered systems. It's creating a kind of evolutionary network. Elena felt a chill run down her spine. "You're saying our ships are developing their own form of communication?" "More than that," Maya replied. "They're developing their own form of collective intelligence, and they want to share it, not just with other human constructs, but with compatible alien biotechnology." The revelation hit the room like a physical force. Several alien representatives began speaking at once, their translation devices creating a cascade of overlapping voices. The implications were staggering. Humanity hadn't just created a new form of spaceship, they'd potentially initiated the next step in technological evolution. A new alert suddenly pulsed through the station's neural network. Dr. Chen burst into the room, his face pale. "Commander, we're picking up quantum fluctuations. Massive ones. The Nexeri fleet isn't gathering. They're already here." Through the windows, space itself seemed to ripple as hundreds of ships emerged from quantum space. The Nexeri fleet was a wall of darkness that blotted out the stars, their ships moving with perfect mechanical precision. But Elena was already moving. "Maya, is the Nautilus ready for what we discussed?" "The ship says it is," Maya replied, her hand pressed against a neural interface. "But what we're attempting, it's never been done before. Neither had growing a living spaceship, until we did it," Elena responded. She turned to the alien representatives. "What we're about to attempt will either change everything or fail spectacularly. Either way, I suggest you all prepare your ships for combat." The Nautilus's neural network pulsed with new patterns as Elena merged with its consciousness. The ship's excitement and anticipation flowed through their connection. It had been preparing for this moment, evolving specifically to meet this challenge. "All hands, prepare for deep integration," Elena announced. "What we learned in Earth's oceans about collective behavior, about swarm intelligence, about adaptation, It's time to apply those lessons on a galactic scale. The Nautilus began to move, its hull rippling with patterns of light that seemed to reach out toward the other ships in Earth's defense fleet. As the patterns spread, something unprecedented began to happen. The neural networks of multiple ships began to synchronize, creating a collective consciousness that spanned multiple vessels. Through their shared neural link, Alina felt the Nautilus's satisfaction. They weren't just going to fight the Nexari fleet. They were going to show the galaxy a new way of existing in space, one that didn't rely on conquering the environment, but on becoming part of it. The battle for Earth's future was about to begin, but it would be fought in a way no one had ever imagined. The age of purely mechanical spaceflight was ending, and something new was about to emerge from humanity's unique perspective on adaptation and survival. The void between Earth and Mars became a battlefield unlike anything the galaxy had ever witnessed. The Nexari fleet advanced like a wall of darkness, their ships moving with mechanical precision, weapons primed to eliminate what they saw as a biological contamination of space itself. But humanity's response defied all expectations. The Nautilus led Earth's defense fleet, but it was no longer just a single ship. Through its evolved neural network, it had created something entirely new. A collective consciousness that linked not just the human bioships, but any vessel whose crew chose to join the network. Varian ships, their crystalline hulls glowing with borrowed bioluminescence, moved in perfect synchronization with Earth's vessels. Other alien ships that had remained to defend Earth found themselves drawn into this unprecedented symphony of organic and mechanical cooperation. Commander Alina Santos felt it all through her neural link with the Nautilus. Every ship, every crew member, every consciousness that joined the network added new dimensions to their collective capability. They weren't just sharing tactical data. They were sharing evolutionary adaptations, innovative solutions, and entirely new ways of thinking about space travel. "They're launching their first wave," Dr. Chen reported, his voice resonating through the neural network. The Nexari attack came as a storm of quantum-tipped missiles, designed to shred both conventional shields and organic matter at the subatomic level. But the collective had already adapted. Drawing on principles observed in deep-sea organisms that survived near hydrothermal vents, the bioships generated quantum fields that didn't just deflect the attacks. They absorbed and repurposed the energy. Each missile that struck their defenses only made them stronger, their biological systems learning and evolving in real time. Impossible. Corell breathed from his position on the Virian flagship, now fully integrated into the network. Their weapons, they're making us stronger. Alina felt the Nautilus's agreement. This was the true power of biological adaptation, the ability to turn challenges into opportunities for growth. Through the neural network, she could sense new defensive strategies evolving and spreading from ship to ship, each vessel's unique characteristics contributing to the collective's capabilities. The Nexari fleet faltered, their rigid battle algorithms unable to account for an enemy that evolved faster than they could attack. But instead of pressing their advantage, Alina felt something unexpected through the neural link: compassion. "They're afraid." Maya's voice came through the network. The Nautilus, it can sense their fear. Fear of change, of losing control, of becoming obsolete. Alina understood. The Nexari and their allies weren't evil. They were fighting to preserve their way of life, their understanding of how the universe should work. But perhaps there was a way to show them a different path. Through the neural network, Alina broadcast a message to the enemy fleet, but not in conventional signals. Instead, the bioships projected their experiences, their understanding of adaptation and growth, their vision of a future where mechanical and biological technologies could evolve together. For a moment, space itself seemed to hold its breath. Then, slowly, a Nexari ship broke formation. Its dark hull began to reflect the bioluminescent patterns of the Earth fleet. Through the neural network, Alina felt the ship's crew making their choice, not to fight against evolution, but to become part of it. Others followed, first in ones and twos, then in larger groups. The Nexary fleet didn't surrender in the traditional sense. Instead, they chose to adapt, to learn, to grow. Their ships, once purely mechanical, began to integrate biological components, creating hybrid systems that combined the best of both approaches. 5 years later, Elena stood in the observation dome of the new Galactic Adaptation Center, built in Earth orbit as a symbol of the changes that had transformed known space. Below her, the Earth's oceans gleamed blue and beautiful, the cradle of the innovation that had reshaped civilization's understanding of technology. "The latest integration reports are in," Maya said, joining her at the window. "Over 60% of spacefaring species have now adopted some form of biomechanical hybrid technology. The neural network spans almost half the known galaxy." Elena nodded, watching as a group of ships departed Earth orbit, some mechanical, some biological, most a combination of both. Each represented a different species' interpretation of humanity's innovations, adapted to their own needs and circumstances. "We never really left Earth," Elena mused, feeling the familiar connection to the Nautilus, now docked below. "We just helped the galaxy understand what we learned here, that the key to surviving in space isn't to conquer it, but to adapt to it, to become part of it." Through the neural network that now spanned the stars, she felt the agreement of countless crews and ships. Humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy hadn't been their bioships, remarkable as they were. It had been a new way of thinking about progress itself, not as a linear path of technological development, but as an endless process of adaptation and evolution. The oceans of Earth had taught humanity that lesson over millions of years. Now those same principles were guiding the next phase of galactic civilization, as species that had once seen each other as competitors began to understand the power of collective adaptation and growth. As night fell over the Atlantic, bioluminescent patterns rippled across the hulls of ships in orbit, echoing the light displays of deep-sea creatures far below. Earth's oceans had shaped humanity's path to the stars, and now that influence was rippling outward, touching distant worlds and civilizations in ways no one could have predicted. The legacy of Earth, it turned out, wasn't just the technology it had spawned, but the fundamental lesson it had taught. That true advancement comes not from dominating nature, but from learning to grow with it. As humanity and their allies looked to the future, they carried that wisdom with them, a gift from the deep oceans to the endless stars.